The cold was not weather. It was law. It bent trees into twisted shapes, carved mountains into glass, and ground valleys into white deserts. The Ice Age ruled with a grip so merciless that even the wind seemed alive, screaming through the pines as if to chase intruders away. And yet, there were intruders, small bands of humans who had learned not just to endure, but to belong. They were the Neanderthals, stocky bodies pressed into furs, wide chests drawing breath that steamed into the frozen air, faces marked by smoke and frost. They did not walk across this land like fragile creatures fleeing the cold. They walked as if carved by it, each step heavy, deliberate, unafraid. At the mouth of a limestone cave, a group huddled around a fire. Sparks snapped into the wind, daring the storm. Shadows stretched long and dark against the walls, where ochre handprints whispered of generations who had survived here before. A woman named Serac pulled a strip of dried meat from the flames and passed it to her son, a boy no more than 6 winters old. His fingers trembled as he took it, but his eyes gleamed, not with fear, but with hunger. In this world, children learn to be hunters long before they stop being children. Near the fire, Kor, the boy's father, worked a stone into a blade. Each strike rang sharp against the cave, echoing like a heartbeat. He was not shaping a weapon for glory. He was shaping it for tomorrow, for the hunt, for the difference between life and death. His hands were scarred, thick, steady. They told the story of every winter survived, every wound endured. Above them, the cave roof wept with ice, droplets hissing as they struck the fire. The smell of smoke, marrow, and damp stone hung in the air, the scent of survival. But outside, the storm deepened. The land was restless, and restlessness always meant danger. Wolves prowled in the distance, their howls carried thin through the night. Herds of mammoth shifted far across the plains, their trumpeting groans shaking the earth. And beyond the reach of sight, the glaciers moved like gods, slow, inevitable, erasing everything in their path. This was the Neanderthals' inheritance, a world that wanted them gone. Serac's son shivered against her chest. She stroked his hair, whispering words that were not language, but comfort. In this harsh silence, love itself was a rebellion. To care for a child, to keep fire alive, to remember the dead. These were acts of defiance greater than any spear thrust. When the storm broke, Kor stood and lifted the blade to the light. It gleamed red with the reflection of the fire. Tomorrow, he would take it into the forest. Tomorrow, he would track the reindeer whose prints vanished in the snow. Tomorrow, he would fight the cold again, and he would win, or the land would take his place. The boy leaned closer to the flames, his eyes wide, firelight dancing inside them. In that reflection was the truth of the Neanderthals, fragile against the cold, yet burning with something that refused to die. The ice would test them. The storms would starve them. The predators would stalk them. But for now, they had fire. For now, they had each other. For now, the world still bent, however slightly, to their will. And in that fragile warmth, carved out of endless cold, humanity endured. The ice roared outside the cave, but inside, life whispered back, "We are still here." The storm eased by dawn, leaving the world glassy and sharp. The snow glistened under a pale sun, every drift sculpted like a blade. Silence spread across the valley, broken only by the crack of ice splitting somewhere far away. Kor rose before the others. His breath hung thick in the air as he stepped beyond the cave mouth, spear in hand. The cold bit his skin, but he welcomed it. To him, the sting of air was not punishment. It was proof he was alive. Behind him, the clan stirred. Serac stoked the embers, coaxing flame from the ashes with careful hands. Her son pressed close, small fingers reaching for warmth. She smiled faintly, though her eyes never left the cave entrance. Each time Kor vanished into the snow, she carried the weight of his return in silence. The hunters gathered at the ridge. Kor, 2 brothers from a nearby kin group, and a woman named Drana, her hair matted with frost. They moved wordlessly, each gesture practiced, honed by generations of repetition. Their prey was not choice, but necessity. Somewhere out there, reindeer herds grazed on lichen buried beneath snow, their breath steaming into the cold. Where reindeer lived, humans lived. Where reindeer fled, humans died. The hunters followed tracks etched faintly into the crust of snow. Each print was a whisper of life in a world designed for death. Hours passed, the cold clawing deeper into their bones, until at last they saw them. A small herd moving through the pines, heavy bodies swaying, antlers gleaming like weapons of ice. Kor signaled. The hunters spread, circling. Spears lifted, breath slowed. They moved as shadows, closing in. Then, the charge. Kor's roar split the air, raw and guttural. Spears flew, striking hide. The reindeer bolted, snow erupting under pounding hooves. One stumbled, a spear lodged deep in its flank. Drana leapt, driving her weapon down, and the beast collapsed with a cry that echoed through the forest. Silence followed. The hunters breathed hard, steam curling from their mouths. Blood soaked into the snow, black against white. They had food. For another day, they had one. But the victory was fragile. Dragging the carcass back to the cave, their bodies strained, muscles burning with cold. Wolves shadowed them, dark shapes slinking between trees, eyes glinting hunger. The hunters snarled, brandishing spears, and the pack kept its distance for now. But the message was clear. In this land, no kill belonged to them alone. Back at the cave, the clan gathered eagerly. Children pressed forward, mouths watering at the smell of fresh meat. Serac helped strip the hide, her hands quick, precise. She placed the warmest cuts into a pot above the fire, the steam filling the cave with the first scent of feast in many days. The boy gnawed a bone, marrow slick across his lips. His laughter echoed against the walls, bright as flame. For a moment, the clan's faces softened. For a moment, the ice was forgotten. Yet even in laughter, survival pressed close. Elders with hollow cheeks chewed slowly, their eyes shadowed with the knowledge that another storm would come. The fire might falter. The herds might move. Wolves, lions, and colder winds always waited. Later, as the night deepened, Serac sang softly to her son. The sound was low, more hum than melody, rising and falling like the wind outside. The boy's eyes fluttered closed, soothed not by warmth but by the presence of love. Kor sat apart, sharpening his spear once more. His eyes lingered on the cave mouth where snow drifted in, glowing faintly under the moon. Beyond that opening stretched a world that gave nothing freely. Yet he knew the truth. For all its cruelty, the ice had made them what they were. Resilient, united, fierce. Every fire sparked against the dark was not only survival. It was defiance. The storm would return. The hunger would return. And so would they. The wind returned before dawn. At first, it was a whisper slipping through cracks in the stone, rattling loose flakes of frost. Then it rose, a howl that shook the cave walls, ripping sleep from every chest. By the time Kor stepped outside, the valley was gone, smothered under a wall of white. The ice had come to claim them. Snow lashed sideways, a blinding curtain. Trees bent, groaned, snapped. The world vanished beyond arm's reach. Breath froze before leaving the mouth. Kor shielded his face, but each gust cut like a blade. Inside, panic spread. Mothers clutched children, pressing them deeper into furs. The fire hissed as smoke choked the cave, its fragile glow struggling against the draft. Every ember felt like a life being tested. By midday, the storm was no longer wind. It was a predator. Wolves and lions could be fought, but this enemy had no body, no blood, no weakness. It crept into lungs, into bones, into thought itself. Food dwindled quickly. The reindeer meat, once a victory, now looked pitiful against the hunger gnawing at every stomach. Elders gave their portions to the children, their eyes dimming as if already surrendering. That night the fire died. The clan huddled in darkness, their breath loud in the void. Kor struck flint again and again, his fingers raw, sparks refusing to catch. Each failed attempt felt heavier, as though the storm itself laughed. Then light. A flame quivered, weak then caught. The cave filled with trembling shadows. Relief rippled, but it was thin, brittle. The storm outside still roared, indifferent. On the third day, desperation pushed them into danger. "We must hunt," Drana rasped, her lips cracked, her eyes hollow. The children, Cor knew she was right. To stay was death. To leave was madness. But madness was their only chance. 4 hunters stepped into the storm. The world beyond the cave was alien. No landmarks, no sky, only endless white. They moved as if blind, their senses stretched, every step a gamble. Snow clawed at their legs, dragging them down. Spears shook in them hands. Then movement. Through the blizzard, a shadow loomed. Massive, swaying, the ground trembling beneath it. At first Cor thought it was the storm itself, given shape. Then he saw the tusks. A mammoth. Its black form cut through the storm, flanks heaving, frost clinging to its hair. It too was starving, driven by hunger into the storm. The hunters' hearts surged. A mammoth meant meat, warmth, survival. But to kill it in this storm was near madness. Still, madness was all they had. Cor signaled. Spears lifted. They circled, feet sinking deep, wind screaming in their ears. The mammoth trumpeted, a sound so deep it shook the marrow in their bones. It swung its tusks, sending snow and branches flying. Drana hurled her spear. It struck flesh, sinking deep. The beast reared, bellowing fury. Another spear struck. Blood steamed into the cold air. The storm swallowed the fight in chaos. The mammoth charged, its bulk a moving wall of death. One hunter vanished under its weight, crushed without sound. Cor lunged, his spear driving into the beast's neck. The mammoth staggered, its cry echoing through the storm like thunder. Then it fell. Silence, except for the storm. The hunters stood shaking, blood and snow freezing on their skins. They had won, but at a cost. One of their own lay broken, the snow already claiming him. Dragging what they could, they stumbled back toward the cave. The mammoth's meat was heavy, but grief was heavier. Inside, when the survivors staggered in with frozen flesh, the clan wept. Not only for the food, but for the one who had not returned. His absence filled the cave more than his body ever had. The storm raged on. They had survived its test, but barely. And in the silence between gusts, a question haunted them all. How many more tests would the ice demand before none remained? The storm ended as suddenly as it had come. For 3 days, the world had been a coffin of white. Now the sky cleared, cold and sharp, the stars glittering like shards of ice. But the silence it left behind was worse than its roar. The clans sat around the fire, chewing mammoth meat, their faces hollow even in victory. The air smelled of blood, smoke, and sorrow. Every bite carried the weight of the hunter who had not returned. His absence lingered like a shadow, pressed into every glance, every silence. Cor's son gnawed on a strip of tendon, his small teeth working with fierce determination. Serac brushed his hair, though her eyes never left her mate. She saw the lines deepening in his face, the way his shoulders hunched as though the storm had settled there permanently. Drana sharpened her spear. The sound scraped sharp against stone, cutting the silence. Her eyes were hard, her mouth a thin line. "We cannot wait for the next storm," she said. "It will come. Always it comes." Cor looked up, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "And what do you suggest?" "We follow the herds. Farther south, away from the ice." A murmur rippled through the elders. To leave the cave, their shelter, their memory, their graves, was unthinkable. Their handprints stained the walls. Their dead lay buried in the earth nearby. To abandon it felt like tearing away their own skin. But hunger was merciless, and the ice had no mercy. Cor stared into the flames. He could still feel the weight of the mammoth's fall, the spray of its blood, the snap of bone. Victory had brought only more grief. His mind circled the truth. They were not hunters of the ice. They were hunted by it. That night, he dreamed. He stood alone on the plain, the storm swirling around him. Shapes moved in the snow. Not wolves, not mammoths, but men. Tall, lean, with eyes that gleamed in the firelight. They carried tools sharper than his, their movements swift, their voices strange. They did not fight the storm. They walked through it, as if it had been around them. When he woke, his body was shaking. He told no one, but the dream clung to him like frost. Somewhere beyond the horizon, he felt it. The world was changing, and they were not alone. Days stretched thin. The mammoth meat dwindled. Wolves prowled closer, their howls echoing in the valley. Each hunt grew harder, prey scarcer. Elders coughed blood into the snow. Children cried at night, hunger gnawing them hollow. One evening, Serac lit a torch and pressed it into Kor's hands. "Go," she whispered. "Lead them. If we stay, we die here." Her voice was not pleading. It was truth. The next morning, they left the cave. The clan moved south in a line, their breaths rising like smoke, their footprints marking the snow. Behind them, the cave mouth yawned empty, shadows swallowing the fire's last glow. Their handprints remained on the walls, red and black, the memory of generations, but no living hands would add to them again. As they walked, the land stretched endless and indifferent. Glaciers glittered like knives. The wind pressed against them, forcing them to bow. Yet still they moved, spears on their shoulders, children carried in arms, fire carried in small bundles of glowing ash. That ash was more than warmth. It was memory, defiance, promise. As long as they carried fire, they carried life. But in the distance, across the plains, other fires flickered. Strange, steady, unfamiliar. The boy clutched his mother's fur, his eyes wide. Others he whispered. Kor's breath caught. His dream had been no dream. The ice was not their only enemy. Something new was coming, and the Neanderthals were walking straight toward it. The march south was a march through silence. Snow fell in veils, burying their footprints almost as soon as they were made. The clan moved in a thin line across the valley, spears balanced on weary shoulders, fire bundled in ash carried carefully by Serac. Every step cost them, every breath a victory stolen from the cold. Hunger hollowed their faces. The mammoth meat had not lasted. They chewed strips of frozen hide to keep their mouths busy, to trick their bodies into waiting for food that never came. Children whimpered softly. Elders fell behind, their steps faltering, their eyes dull with surrender. On the fourth day, they found tracks. Not prey, not wolf, human. Kor knelt in the snow, pressing his palm into the print. It was longer, narrower than his own. The strides stretched as though the maker walked with the wind itself. His stomach turned. These were the figures from his dream, the ones who moved as though the ice obeyed them. The others gathered, whispers sharp with fear. Spirits, one muttered. Another hissed, giants. But the truth was worse. These are not spirits. These were men. They followed the prince cautiously, curiosity wrestling with fear. Soon smoke cut the sky. Firelight flickered between the trees. The clan crept forward, and then they saw them. Tall figures stood around a blaze, their cloaks of stitched hide flowing like shadows. Spears tipped with flint gleamed in the light, longer than any weapon the Neanderthals had known. Children darted among them, their voices bright, their movements quick. Their fire burned strong and steady, its glow defying the snow. The Cro-Magnons, the giants. Serac's breath caught. Drana gripped her spear so hard her knuckles split. The boy clung to his mother's leg, his eyes wide. None of them spoke. They only watched. For the first time, Kor felt small. Not because the men were taller, but because their fire was different. Not fragile, not flickering, but owned. Commanded. It was not survival. It was mastery. The Cro-Magnons laughed, their voices rising together, strange and melodic. They moved with a rhythm, a pattern, as though bound by a song the Neanderthals had never heard. It was not the sound of fear. It was the sound of a people certain they would endure. Kor's chest tightened. He looked at his own clan, gaunt faces, hollow eyes, fire carried like a fragile secret. For the first time, he wondered if they were no longer the hunters of this world, but its shadows. Then one of the Cro-Magnon men turned. His gaze swept the trees, sharp as a blade. His eyes met Kor's. The silence shattered. A cry rang out, high and clear. The giants lifted their spears. Flames leapt higher. The air thrummed with warning. Kor pulled his clan back, retreating into the forest. Snow swallowed their prints as quickly as they were made, but fear followed them like a second shadow. Back at their camp, the fire sputtered. Children cried. The elders murmured of doom. Drana spat into the flames. "They take the land," she said. "They take the herds. And when they see us again, they will take us too." Kor said nothing. His hands shook as he held his son close. He had fought storms, wolves, and mammoths. But this was different. The ice did not plan. Wolves did not dream. Mammoths did not laugh. The Cro-Magnons were not predators. They were rivals. And rivals meant extinction. The clan did not speak for a long time after that night. Words felt useless against what they had seen. They huddled in silence around their fading fire, each face carved with the weight of something greater than storms, greater than hunger. It was no longer the ice that haunted them. It was the future, and it no longer belonged to them. Days stretched on. The snow thinned as they moved farther south, but food did not come. Herds were gone, driven by the same giants who now lit fires across the valleys. Smoke rose on distant horizons like warnings, proof that the land was claimed. One by one, the clan dwindled. An elder lay down in the snow and did not rise. A child's cough grew weaker each night until it stopped altogether. Their bodies were left with care, covered in branches, their spirits released with murmured rituals. But each burial made the survivors feel smaller, more fragile, more fleeting. Kor walked at the front, his son clinging to his back, Serac beside him. His steps were heavy, his breath ragged. In his dreams, he still saw the Cro-Magnon's fire, bright, confident, eternal. It burned in his mind more fiercely than any storm. One night, as the clan rested beneath a canopy of stars, Kor crouched beside the fire. The flames licked low, hungry for fuel they could no longer spare. He stared into them, his reflection shifting, vanishing, reappearing. "We will not outlast them," he whispered to Serac. His voice cracked, not with fear but with truth. "But we are not nothing. We have walked the earth. We have fought the ice. We have loved and bled and lived." Serac pressed her forehead against his.